What up? I'm Josh Paulson, and welcome to Your Story Now. Today we are looking at Who Am I Really, developing out your characters and getting to know who they really are. And we need to determine who a character is so we know what they'll do, because characters acting and reacting is the core of what makes a story. It's how stories happen at all. And so we are going to look into the DAB structure for character development. And the DAB structure is built on a very simple concept. Number one, we need to have a character who fits a criteria. Number two, we determine what they need to have to fit that criteria. And number three, we give them that criteria by meeting the needs. So we kind of have criteria for criteria. It's criterioception. I probably need to stop memeing now. So let's go back to that happening from last time, which is falls off a cliff and our character is Bob. Let's say that our goal is that Bob does not die when he falls off the cliff. So our data here is something like doesn't die when falls off cliffs. Now, we need to consider what he needs to not die when falling off a cliff. So we can have multiple right answers here. It could be that he's bouncy, and so he just bounces. Or perhaps it is that he floats, and so he floats on the way down. Now, neither of these are real people, but we kind of have to figure out how Bob's going to survive. It could be that he has a parachute. This is a lot more believable. So then in order for him to have a parachute, though, what's needed for that? And so then here's where we go to backstory. My favorite way to develop out a backstory is to just ask, why does Bob have a parachute? So why does Bob have a parachute? Maybe Bob was just parachuting and he didn't return it yet because he's a jerk. Or perhaps Bob jumped out of an airplane and he still has a parachute, but I don't even know if you can get those back in. I'm not a parachute expert. The main idea here is that we have this goal, we have this need, and then we assess, well, what could he have? What does he need to have this be true? And then we have the backstory. Now I'm going to take this to something more practical, something that you would do more often. So let's say that as part of our data for Bob, rather than the whole falls off a cliff, we're going to ignore this. We just say that we want Bob to be an angry person. Well, what would be needed? Well, it could be something like, could be chemical imbalance, could just be something awful happened. And I mean he's a generally angry person, like not just he's angry for a few seconds or for an hour or even a month. I mean like he's been angry all the time. Could be that he was abused. We could have all these reasons that Bob is angry. So then we have this assessment. So then it's like, okay, so let's choose one of those things. So why was Bob abused? And we could even take this and just say, why was Bob angry? And we can kind of combine the assessment and backstory. But for now, why was Bob abused? Well, his dad... And we can go into his dad beat him as a child, all sorts of horrible things. And basically going from here's our need for the story, how can that need be fulfilled, picking an option, and then explaining why that is the case for Bob. And what this allows us to do is get to decide who Bob is for the purposes of the story, and we get to know him. So he's not just doing something randomly or randomly surviving falling from a cliff or randomly being angry, but he has a reason. And this is essential for believability, because if characters do things for no reason, it is not believable. But we're going to talk more about believability in the next video.